Predators came out in 2010 and is the last film in the Predator franchise I've never reviewed. I'm sorry it took me longer than I thought to get this review to you guys after publishing Predator 2, Tenant, The New Mutants, Bill and Ted 3, Mulan. All these movies hit, and then TIFF started, and I've been so busy, so I'm finally able to sit down and talk about this movie. This film opens with Adrien Brody falling from the sky and landing in the jungle, where he encounters a bunch of other folks who've been thrown into this jungle against their will, and they slowly realize that they are being hunted. I was so on board when this movie came out. I was so ready to see a new Predator film. I liked the idea of it being in the jungle, but I expected it to be a little more different. And Predator 2 being the film that was last in the franchise officially, because this series doesn't really count the AVP movies, that film came out 20 years before this movie. And at the very least, that movie did try to do something completely different with this story. This movie threw a bunch of folks in a jungle again and had a bunch of predators picking them off one by one. In many ways, Predators is one of the biggest fanboy movies ever made. Don't get me wrong, I fucking love John McTiernan's original movie, but this movie doesn't really know how to be its own film. It is so much in service to that original movie to the point where the new things that it tries stick out like a sore thumb, as if they are trying so closely to adhere to the formula and the structure of that original film that those new ideas don't really work. There's one intriguing idea behind this film, and that's that the title has a double meaning. Of course, there's the predators themselves in the woods that are hunting these people, but all of the people there have very shaky backstories and have really rough lives, and they've done things that they're not proud of, and so they could also be viewed as the predators. The problem is, it's not subtle at all. There's a scene where the characters state the intent of the theme out loud. And unfortunately, despite the fact that the film has a great cast, people like Goggins, Mahershala Ali, Laurence Fishburne, the film is so derivative of John McTiernan's original film that it becomes very tedious. Right down to John Debney's score basically being Alan Silvestri's score, just reworked slightly. And while I usually like Adrien Brody, and I'm also a fan of unorthodox casting choices, he just doesn't bring the charisma that Arnie brought to that first film. It's just not there, and he's not as exciting. He's not as fun. The film doesn't have a likable presence like Danny Glover either in the lead, and so you're stuck with Adrien Brody grunting through the whole film and covering himself in mud and repeating lines from the original film.
I'm here, kill me. Come on. Come on. Do it now, kill me.
Something else I noticed about the film when I watched it again was that they don't shoot the predators at low angles enough. They tend to shoot them right at height, and so they don't look very imposing. They don't seem frightening or fierce enough in this movie. I'm not concerned about any of these characters or their survival, and it's probably because I just don't really care about any of them. And that's one of the issues with the theme they're going for. Are the humans the predators, or are the creatures themselves the predators? Because they constantly show all of these characters doing things that don't really endear you to them. At one point, Adrien Brody suggests using a dead body as a booby trap. It just makes him look like a fucking scumbag, and it's hard to care about him as the lead. And when the film eventually asks us to get excited about him putting mud all over his body and fighting the predator, I just don't really care, because I never liked this character in the first place. This movie came out in a time period where Hollywood was obsessed with figuring out what worked about the 80s and 90s. There were so many horror remakes in the mid-2000s into the teens, and they just kept happening and happening and happening. Predators is technically a sequel, but it feels like a soft reboot. They have Long Tall Sally playing in the ending credits. They have so many of the exact same lines reused. The score sounding the same. Billy's sacrifice scene becomes Hanzo's sacrifice scene. It feels like there wasn't an original idea in this entire film, and what I can say best about it is that, for the most part, it's directed fairly well. The first 20 to 25 minutes of the movie has a mystery because you're wondering what these people are doing there, and it's exciting to watch them figure that out. But as soon as the guns start blazing, you know that the rest of the film is for the most part going to be humans versus predators. And it slows down considerably when they meet Laurence Fishburne's character, who's been trapped there for a long time and is starting to lose his mind. There was a period of time, and honestly we're still in it with Disney's live-action remakes, where Hollywood just thinks we want copies of things we already like. We don't want new stories. We don't want fresh stories. And sometimes that's our own fault. We told them as a majority, that Predator 2 was disappointing. And yeah, it's not as good as the first one, but I think it's better than Predators because it tried something different. It legitimately introduced new characters, and it had a new story. And it successfully fleshed out the mythology of these creatures with the ship at the end and the gun that they throw Danny Glover and all those skulls that they had collected. This film does almost nothing with the mythology of these creatures except to suggest that every once in a while, they like to have a party where they kill a bunch of people on a planet somewhere. I'm gonna give Predators a C-. I know some people like this movie, but it never worked for me. It felt like it was a pale imitation of a much better film that didn't know how to be its own film. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. I've now reviewed every single Predator movie. I have a playlist for that on my channel if you want to watch all of them, including the AVP films. Thank you as always, but also thank you to the sponsor for this video, Expressvpn. Expressvpn encrypts your internet connection using the highest standards of encryption currently available. Expressvpn also features content unblocking. It gives you unrestricted access to all parts of the internet. As seen here, all I have to do is connect to the UK and I have access to all of this Studio Ghibli entertainment. Many websites or apps are blocked depending on where you are in the world. ExpressVPN allows you to reroute your connection to a server in a country of your choice, making geo-restrictions a thing of the past. For myself, I like that ExpressVPN has content unblocking. There's a lot of shows on Netflix in other countries that I can't watch. And since some of us have been going stir crazy this year, binging shows and movies, this is really helpful. So please visit expressvpn.com/Chris Stuckmann in the description below to find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmannized.